Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw, like always, fucking sucked. The show was terrible tonight. We had the debut of Eva Marie. Well, not really, which I will get to, which that whole thing fucking sucked and was a complete failure. But this was the go-home show for Hell in a Cell, which is this Sunday. Which, do you all know that Hell in a Cell is this Sunday? Probably if I told you, you would have all remembered that Hell in a Cell was this Sunday. If I didn't, then you're probably like, well, wait a minute. There's a pay-per-view on Sunday? Yeah. But like I said, Monday Night Raw, fucking terrible tonight. What do we get on the show tonight? We had Nikki Cross versus Charlotte, once again. Didn't we see this 2 weeks ago, where Nikki Cross and Charlotte were in a match, only it was a beat the clock match? We had Jeff Hardy doing double duty tonight, where he took on John Morrison and Cedric Alexander. We had Matt Riddle and Randy Orton versus The New Day, Rhea Ripley versus Asuka, Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. And once again, we had Jaxson Ryker versus Elias. We saw this last week. Then we had McIntyre versus Styles, which sounds good on paper. And then the main event to Monday Night Raw was a six-man tag, where it was McIntyre and the Viking Raiders versus Styles, Omos, and Bobby Lashley. But let's jump right into the review. So Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss was backstage, swinging. Bliss ended up welcoming us to the show. She ended up saying that she is happy to have us, and that she got a bunch of feedback on how Lily acted last week to Shayna Baszler, which was one of the worst endings to Monday Night Raw. That whole ending last week between Shayna Baszler running backstage, going into a room, locking herself in the room just to see Lily as she looked in the mirror. That was fucking terrible. Awful. So Alexa Bliss ended up admitting that she was taken aback. And then we got a video package of the Shayna Baszler Lily shit, which, do we really need to see that again? Because watching it again, I'm like, oh man, this is still fucking terrible as how it was last week. So Alexa Bliss ended up saying that she had only good intentions when she invited Baszler to her playground. But unfortunately, things got a little out of hand. Alexa Bliss wanted to say that due to the naughtiness of Lily, and because WWE is going back on the road soon, she has decided to put Lily in timeout. So she ended up saying, that doesn't mean Shayna Baszler didn't get what she deserved. So then Nia Jax ended up appearing. Alexa Bliss ended up, doing her shtick, and Nia Jax ended up telling Alexa Bliss to cut the crap. She ended up telling Bliss that Baszler will see her on Sunday at Hell in a Cell. So Nia Jax was wondering what happened to Alexa Bliss. Like, what is wrong with you? She ended up saying that they used to be friends, and that she knows the real Bliss, the real Alexa Bliss. So Nia Jax ended up saying that she wants Alexa Bliss to stay away from her friends and out of her career. So Alexa Bliss ended up telling Nia Jax, oh, we were never friends. So Nia Jax ended up saying that she has to smack some sense into Alexa Bliss now. So Nia Jax then proposed a match with Alexa in the ring later on in the night. So Alexa Bliss was shown crying. She ended up saying that she never meant to hurt anyone. So she's crying, and she turns her tears into laughter. And she was like, oh, I'm just kidding. So Alexa Bliss ended up standing up. She ended up getting in Nia Jax's face. And she ends up accepting the match. This reminds me so much of WrestleMania 34. Remember? Bliss and Nia Jax were in that match. So we got that later on in the night. Bliss versus Nia Jax. And then we went to Nikki Cross versus Charlotte Flair. Once again, we saw this 2 weeks ago. Even though 2 weeks ago it was a beat the clock match. But Nikki Cross ended up coming out first. And then we had Sarah Schreiber backstage with Charlotte. And she ended up asking why the match is so important with Nikki Cross. So Charlotte ended up saying that she isn't worried about how she should focus on her match at Hell in a Cell. But she needs that last match removed from her record because she fought too hard for that to happen. Well, listen, Charlotte, it's not going to be removed from your record. So Charlotte ended up going on about Nikki Cross and Rhea Ripley. And then she headed out for her match with Nikki Cross, which is the same thing that we got 2 weeks ago. Nothing different in this match. But we had Rhea Ripley end up coming out. So Charlotte was talking trash from the ring. Nikki Cross ended up rolling her up for a close 2 count. So Nikki Cross ended up getting sent to the apron. She ended up fighting back to Charlotte. Charlotte ended up knocking Nikki Cross from the apron out to the floor. So Rhea Ripley was shown watching from the stage as Nikki Cross ended up going to the floor. And Charlotte ended up sending Nikki Cross face first into the barricade. So we had Rhea Ripley end up watching from a chair at ringside. She was smiling at Charlotte. And by the way, that popping noise, I have my water here, so. But we had Charlotte remain in control of the match. So Nikki Cross was trying to mount some offense on Charlotte, but Charlotte ended up just taking down Nikki Cross. And at the end of the match, we had Charlotte being counted out because she was paying too much attention to Rhea Ripley. So Nikki Cross ended up running back into the ring. And there you go. Nikki Cross ended up winning the match by count out. Post-match, Nikki Cross ended up running out of the ring. Charlotte ended up charging after her. So Charlotte ended up leveling Nikki Cross at ringside with a boot. So Charlotte ended up going for the figure 4, but Rhea Ripley ended up running in. She ended up grabbing Charlotte from behind. And Rhea Ripley ended up dropping Charlotte with the riptide. So Rhea Ripley ended up standing over Charlotte with the Raw Women's Championship in hand. So Rhea Ripley ended up leaving the ring, taunting Charlotte. So that was that. But overall, Nikki Cross versus Charlotte, same shit. We saw this 2 weeks ago. So nothing new. So then we had Matt Riddle and Jeff Hardy backstage. Matt Riddle was feeling bad about last week, and he ended up asking Jeff Hardy, as a tag team legend, about advice on making it. So Jeff Hardy was talking about keys to a successful tag team. And he was telling Riddle that he can't believe he's saying this. But Matt Riddle should listen to Randy Orton, because he's been here for a long time. So Jeff Hardy ended up mentioning Riddle his match, that he's going to be facing John Morrison. So Matt Riddle starts ranting about, nothing, and Jeff Hardy ended up walking away. Randy Orton then appeared, and Matt Riddle ended up apologizing for last week. He ends up telling Randy Orton that he promises he won't let him down tonight. Orton ended up telling Riddle to be himself. And Riddle ended up asking if that means that, Orton has taken a liking to Matt Riddle. So Orton ended up saying no. And he ended up walking off. And that was that. So, Matt Riddle and Randy Orton they're the only decent things going on Monday Night Raw. At least they're entertaining together as a tag team. And then we had Jeff Hardy versus John Morrison. Miz and Morrison end up coming out. Miz still in his wheelchair, and he still had the horn on the side, the clown horn, as I would mention, because last week he's ringing the horn like he's a clown in the circus. Might as well throw some clown makeup on the Miz. And then on the other side you had Morrison's dipstick. Not the dripstick, I call it the dipstick. So Morrison was pushing the Miz in the wheelchair. So Miz was like, "Oh, where are you going?" So, and then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. So then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Jeff Hardy ended up coming out. The Miz was on commentary during the match. Jeff Hardy ended up posing in the corner. And then Morrison sprays Jeff Hardy in the face with the dipstick. So Morrison then took advantage of the match, ended up rushing into the ring. And Jeff Hardy was stunned from the dipstick. Morrison started unloading on Jeff Hardy in the corner. Jeff Hardy ended up fighting out of the corner, started working on Morrison. And Morrison came back. He was delivering some more offense to Jeff Hardy. And then out came Cedric Alexander. Cedric ended up watching from ringside. Morrison was continuing delivering some offense to Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy ended up countering Morrison with a double leg drop. Went for the cover, which Morrison kicked out at 2. Jeff Hardy then turned around and headed to the corner. He threw something at the Miz. Jeff Hardy ended up nailing the poetry in motion, but Morrison ended up kicking out at 2. So we had Morrison end up following Jeff Hardy up because Morrison ended up scooping Hardy on his shoulders, on the apron, ended up dropping him over the top rope. Morrison then delivered the Starship Pain and went for the cover. So there you go. John Morrison ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had Cedric Alexander take the mic at ringside, and he was yelling at Jeff Hardy. So Cedric apologizes for not showing Jeff Hardy the respect that he deserves as a legend last week. Cedric went on to say that he idolized Jeff Hardy. He said he went back and watched their match and saw how Jeff showed him up and disrespected him. So Cedric ended up saying that he saw how Jeff Hardy was nothing but a sore winner. He ended up saying that he is only sorry he didn't kick Jeff Hardy's disrespect ass into a retirement home. So then Jeff Hardy got on the mic, and he said to Cedric Alexander that he will retire if Cedric can beat him in a match right now. So Cedric ended up heading into the ring, and then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, we had Jeff Hardy versus Cedric Alexander. This match went 2 minutes tops. So Jeff Hardy ended up kicking Cedric Alexander out of the ring. Jeff ended up bringing Cedric back into the ring and dropped him for a 2 count with a dragon screw leg whip. Cedric was working on Jeff Hardy's leg. He was grounding Jeff Hardy with a single leg grab. Cedric ended up focusing on Jeff Hardy's leg still, but Jeff Hardy ended up coming back and delivering the jawbreaker to Cedric. So Hardy was shown limping. He had a twist of fate blocked by Cedric. Cedric came right back and delivered a Michinoku driver. Went for the cover, which Jeff Hardy kicked out too. So Jeff Hardy then delivered the twist of fate to Cedric Alexander. Jeff Hardy went up to the top and delivered a swanton, which connected to Cedric Alexander. And Jeff Hardy went for the cover. And there you go. Jeff Hardy ended up winning the match, avoiding having to retire. So this match went 2 minutes tops. So, but Jeff Hardy, he really needs to leave WWE. He needs to go to AEW and be with Matt again. So they could team up again, possibly beat the Young Bucks if they're still the champions. Whenever Jeff Hardy, decides to go to AEW when his contract is up with WWE. I think, once Jeff Hardy goes to AEW, him and Matt are going to win the titles. They're going to have a final run, and then they're going to possibly retire after they lose the other tag team titles. That's how I see it. But yeah, Jeff Hardy needs to get out of WWE and go to AEW, because you see how the way that WWE is booking Jeff Hardy, making him a jobber. So Jeff Hardy needs to get out of there. Jeff Hardy deserves better. Oh man, and here we go. Here we get to Eva Marie. My God. My God. What did we watch here? What did we watch here tonight? So, Eva Marie took on Naomi. Naomi ended up coming out first. And Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, Naomi was waiting in the ring. Eva Marie ended up making her way out. Because this was Eva Marie's return. Yeah. Return. And we see Piper Niven from NXT UK. She was with Eva Marie. So Piper Niven ended up rushing into the ring. Eva Marie ended up walking behind her. So Piper Niven was stepping up to Naomi. And she was telling the referee that she will be competing. And the guys on commentary were like, who is this woman? I'm like, they haven't watched NXT UK. Piper Niven, she is decent in the ring. I like how the way she works in the ring. You've seen her matches on NXT UK. She's talented. And the audience watching Monday Night Raw, they're probably going to be like, who is she? Because they didn't say her name. So Piper Niven ended up leveling Naomi. Eva Marie was watching from ringside. So Naomi had a confused look on her face about, the change in opponent. So Naomi was unloading on Piper Niven with punches, but Piper Niven ended up dropping her. And Piper Niven ended up delivering a splash off the ropes to Naomi. Piper Niven ended up delivering the Michinoku driver to Naomi. And she went for the cover. And there you go. Piper Niven picked up the win for Eva Marie. And they were like, here's your winner. And he didn't even say Piper Niven. Like, they're all like, who is this woman? So after the match, Eva Marie got on the mic and she announced herself as the winner. Yeah, she announced herself as the winner as not doing anything. She was just standing outside of the ring. You know what this means? It means that WWE knows she's a horrible wrestler. That she's horrible in the ring. Why even bring her back? Eva Marie is a waste of a signee. I'm like, WWE, they let Peyton Royce go. They let Billy Kay go. They let Ruby Riott go for fucking Eva Marie. Just standing out there doing nothing. Awful. This is already a failure with Eva Marie. Just fucking terrible. But why is she there for? Just to stand out there and do nothing? This is an embarrassment to women's wrestling. It really is. It's awful. So fucking awful. Please, when is our contract up? Please, let it come fast. Waste of roster space on the women's division. Well, what am I saying? The women's division is fucking terrible on Raw and SmackDown. So then we had Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke backstage. And this was done earlier in the day. They were doing a photo shoot. And they were bothered by Tamina and Natalya, the women's tag team champions. And Tamina and Natalya were training in a ring nearby Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. So Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke end up asking them if they can keep the noise down. So Natalya and Tamina were knocking Rose and Brooke about them worrying more about their looks than their skills in the ring. So then we had Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke and Natalya and Tamina. They were having some words. And we had Natalya and Tamina end up inviting them into the ring. A fight broke out between both teams. And officials had to come and break it up. So that was that. But looks like we're going to be getting that next week on Monday Night Raw. We're going to have Tamina and Natalya versus Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. We're going to be seeing that next week. I already know it. So then we had Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick was interviewing Drew McIntyre backstage. McIntyre was hyped up and confident about challenging Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell. So there you go. That was that. Drew McIntyre being hyped up for Hell in a Cell this Sunday. So then we had the New Day versus Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. And this was a good match here. This was a very enjoyable match. And the match started off with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods getting the upper hand on Matt Riddle. Riddle ended up kicking out at 2 because Kofi and Woods end up doing a double team on him. Kofi ended up keeping control of the match, ended up flying off the top and deliver a shot to Matt Riddle's elbow. Woods ended up coming back into the ring, started pounding on Matt Riddle. Woods ended up taking Matt Riddle into the corner, and Orton ended up coming in. Woods ended up decking Orton with an elbow, and Kofi came back in, did a springboard off the top with a crossbody to Randy Orton. Kofi went for the cover, which Orton kicked out too. Kofi was then working on Randy Orton's arm, but Orton ended up breaking free. Orton ended up working Kofi in the corner, and Kofi ended up nailing a drop kick from the second rope to Orton. So Woods ended up launching Matt Riddle across the ring with a suplex. Orton and Matt Riddle end up going to the floor to take a breather. So then we had, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Matt Riddle and Xavier Woods were trading some running strikes to each other. Riddle ended up dropping Xavier Woods with a flying knee. Riddle then dropped Xavier Woods with a fisherman suplex, which he went for the cover, which Woods ended up kicking out at 2. Orton ended up coming in. Him and Riddle did a double team on Xavier Woods. Orton ended up grounding Xavier Woods in the middle of the ring. Matt Riddle ended up coming back in, ended up keeping Xavier Woods down. Matt Riddle delivered a Broton to Xavier Woods. And Matt Riddle was just working on Xavier Woods in the middle of the ring. And at the end of the match, we had Xavier Woods end up going for the honor roll, but Randy Orton ended up delivering the RKO to Xavier Woods. So Randy Orton went for the cover, and there you go. Orton and Matt Riddle ended up winning the match. Post-match, Riddle was having some fun. He was dancing around, and Randy Orton, wasn't liking that. He was all about business. So Matt Riddle was shown dropping down to pose with Randy Orton, but Orton ended up getting out of the ring. Riddle ended up joining Randy Orton at ringside. He tried to hype Randy Orton up, but Orton just kept walking up the ramp. So Randy Orton didn't give a shit. But overall, this was a good match. Really enjoyable match here between these teams. I'd say this is the only decent, good match on the show tonight. So then we had Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. So Asuka ended up coming out first, and Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, we had Rhea Ripley coming out. So the match was just meh, in my opinion. Match started off, they end up sizing up, both Rhea Ripley and Asuka. Asuka ended up applying a headlock to Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley ended up fighting out of the headlock, but missed in the corner, missed an attack in the corner. Asuka was shown taunting at Rhea Ripley. Asuka ducked a clothesline from Ripley, and both of them were running the ropes. Asuka ended up taking Rhea Ripley down. They started trading some pin attempts. Rhea Ripley ended up fighting Asuka off with some strikes. Asuka ended up going down the corner. She ended up fighting out of the corner, and Rhea Ripley ended up blocking her. Asuka jabbed at Rhea Ripley. So Rhea Ripley then dropped Asuka with a headbutt. So Asuka ended up fighting. She ended up applying a stand octopus to Rhea Ripley. So Asuka ended up getting on Rhea Ripley's back with a sleeper. Ripley ended up slamming back down to the mat to break the sleeper from Asuka. So Rhea Ripley ended up going for a cover, which Asuka kicked out too. Rhea Ripley delivered a clothesline to Asuka. Ripley ended up ducking a swing, but Asuka ended up fighting. She kept on fighting. So at the end of the match, we had Rhea Ripley end up catching Asuka. She delivered the riptide in the middle ring and went for the cover. So there you go. Rhea Ripley ended up winning the match. So post-match, Charlotte ended up attacking Rhea Ripley out of nowhere. She ended up dropping her. Charlotte ended up beating Rhea Ripley around the ring as the referee was trying to restore order. Rhea Ripley was trying to fight Charlotte off, but Charlotte was staying on top of her. Rhea Ripley was shown unloaded with some strikes, and officials end up coming down to break up Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. So they kept fighting and brawling with each other. So we saw Sean Daivari, who WWE rehired. So it was good to see Daivari there. And then we saw Adam Pearce and Shane Helms. They end up getting Charlotte to the floor. Charlotte was irate. She started fighting them off. And then she went back and beat up on Rhea Ripley. So Charlotte was back up the ramp. She ended up trying to run back down as Rhea Ripley was being held in the ring. And Charlotte was shown, she looked like she had a busted nose and she was bleeding. So Rhea Ripley was taunting her. Charlotte was cursing up a storm, which they had to bleep out on television. So Charlotte was shown seated on the ramp. She ended up promising to kick Rhea Ripley's ass this Sunday at Hell in a Cell. So that was that. But overall, very meh match from Rhea Ripley and Asuka. And then we went backstage and we saw MVP and Bobby the Godfather Lashley drinking champagne. And Lashley had his ladies there, or his hoes, because, of course, WWE is trying to make Bobby Lashley into the next Godfather. So Kevin Patrick ended up walking in, and he ended up asking Bobby Lashley about Hell in a Cell. So MVP ended up yelling at Kevin Patrick. And he interrupts his apology because Kevin Patrick had, apologized for just walking in, because MVP was like, oh, you're always walking in here and, you don't knock or anything. So MVP ended up telling Kevin Patrick to shut up for making it awkward. So he ended up going on about Hell in a Cell and how Bobby Lashley is focused on the match. And that Drew McIntyre will finally run out of chances. So Bobby Lashley then stood up, snatched the mic, and he was saying about how he will ragdoll McIntyre in the Hell in a Cell. So Lashley ended up telling everyone to remember that McIntyre asked for the beating he will get. So Lashley ended up bringing up how McIntyre's comparison to William Wallace. So Bobby Lashley ended up liking that comparison because McIntyre has committed a capital offense. So Lashley ended up saying that on Sunday he will publicly execute McIntyre, then mount his head on a stick. So there you go. That was what Bobby Lashley had to say. So the match is going to be Hell in a Cell, WWE Championship on the line. So that's going to be taking place on Sunday. And then we had Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. Of course, Alexa Bliss ended up coming out. She ended up heading to the ring, started bouncing around on the middle rope. So Alexa Bliss was in the ring. She was waiting for Nia Jax. And it is now confirmed that it's going to be Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler this Sunday at Hell in a Cell. So then Nia Jax ended up coming out. This match was boring. This match was terrible. So the match started off with Nia Jax charging, but Alexa Bliss ended up kicking Nia Jax's legs a few times. Bliss then jumped on the back of Nia Jax, but Nia Jax ended up tossing Alexa Bliss down to the mat. So Nia Jax ended up charging in with a big boot, but Alexa Bliss ended up moving out of the way. Bliss ended up taking Nia Jax down to one knee, started delivering kicks to keep Nia Jax down. Alexa Bliss then delivered a right hand. Nia Jax then shoved her away, but Alexa Bliss was attacking Nia Jax with strike still. So Nia Jax was shown ragdoll Alexa Bliss, and Jax ended up delivering a run splash while Alexa Bliss was down. Nia Jax delivered a scoop slam to Bliss in the middle of the ring. Nia Jax went for the cover. Alexa Bliss ended up kicking out too. So at the end of the match, we had Alexa Bliss. She was shown on the turnbuckle. She was on the second turnbuckle. Reginald then distracted Alexa Bliss from the apron. And this all led to Alexa Bliss end up countering and drop kicking Nia Jax's leg. Alexa Bliss ended up screaming in Nia Jax's face. And she ended up dropping her with a DDT. And Alexa Bliss went back up to the top turnbuckle. She ended up hitting the Twisted Bliss. Alexa Bliss ended up going for the cover, but Reginald ended up running in and pulled Alexa Bliss off of Nia Jax, which Alexa Bliss wins the match by disqualification because of Reginald. Post-match, Reginald was pleading as Alexa Bliss was staring Reginald down. And Alexa Bliss ended up backing him towards the corner. She was staring at Reginald like she was crazy. And we had Alexa Bliss hypnotize Reginald here because it looked like Reginald was in a trance. So Nia Jax ended up recovering. Alexa Bliss ended up exiting the ring, which she ended up breaking Reginald's trance. So Nia Jax ended up telling Reginald to snap out of it. So that was that. So yeah, Alexa Bliss ended up putting Reginald in a trance. Interesting, right? No. Where is this going with Alexa Bliss? I ask, where is this going? It's leading to nowhere. I mean, you look at it, where is this going? What are they doing with Alexa Bliss? I mean, you think all this magic and stuff that Alexa Bliss is doing is going to work when the live fans come back next month? I imagine if they're still doing this magic shit with Alexa Bliss and the fans don't like it, they're going to boo the hell out of it. And I know that's what they're going to do. So I won't be surprised with that. If WWE still have Alexa Bliss do magic, that's how I see it. Fans are going to boo the hell out of it. Then we saw MVP end up approaching Kofi Kingston in the locker room. Kofi ended up asking MVP what he wants. So MVP ended up telling Kofi that he wants to know if he has thought more about what he said last week. MVP went on about how tonight's loss to RK Bro, Matt Riddle, and Randy Orton, and I'm saying that Kofi Mania is gone and that it's never coming back. MVP ended up telling Kofi to look to his left for the blame. So that was where Xavier Woods was standing. So MVP ended up going on, ended up saying that Kofi didn't even get pinned and that he's still a loser. So Xavier Woods was knocking MVP, and Kofi ended up telling him to keep it moving unless he wants to lose his teeth. So Kofi ended up telling MVP how he feels and says he owes his success to support from his family and friends in the company, and nothing will change that. So MVP was taunting Kofi one more time about not having a match at Hell in a Cell. So MVP ended up leaving, and Kofi was shown, maybe he was thinking about what MVP had to say last week. I'm like, are we going to get a breakup here with the New Day, with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, where they're just going to do their own thing? Looks like it. Who knows? If that's what they're heading to, I don't care. So then we had, once again, Elias versus Jaxson Ryker. Boring. Absolutely boring match. The match ended the same as last week. You all know who won the match? Jaxson Ryker, by countout. Because, just like last week, Elias was out of the ring. So, Elias didn't get back into the ring. Elias got counted out. Jaxson Ryker wins by countout. Who cares? Who fucking cares? These two need to get off my TV. They really do. Moving on. We had Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles. McIntyre ended up coming out first. Then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, we saw McIntyre was waiting in the ring. And then out came Bobby Lashley, MVP, Bobby the Godfather Lashley, MVP, and Lashley's ladies, his hoes, instead. So there was a couch and a table set up on the stage with the rope barriers. It looks like the VIP lounge. So all of them end up sitting on the couch, and they were looking on as McIntyre was waiting in the ring. And out came Styles. Styles came out along with Omos, of course. Bobby Lashley's ladies there were flirting with Omos. And Styles ended up telling them to come down, stop flirting with the ladies. So Styles ended up getting into the ring. The match got underway. Both Styles and McIntyre lock up. Styles went to work on McIntyre's arm. McIntyre ended up breaking it. He got free, and they were going back and forth. McIntyre delivered a chop to Styles' chest. McIntyre then delivered a backdrop, which launched Styles into the air. McIntyre can control the match. He ended up dropping Styles again, stomping on him, talking some trash. Styles ended up kicking McIntyre's shoulder, ended up rocking him with a few strikes. So McIntyre ended up backsliding Styles, but Styles ended up blocking it. McIntyre nailed the Future Shock DDT to Styles in the middle of the ring. McIntyre ended up standing up instead of going for the pin to Styles. McIntyre turned and he looked at MVP and Bobby Lashley. So Omos ended up taking advantage of the distraction. He ended up pulling Styles out of the ring. MVP and Lashley were shown walking down to ringside, yelling at McIntyre. And then out came the Viking Raiders, Eric and Ivar. So they marched down there. Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Raw came back, we saw McIntyre was continuing to dominate on Styles. We had the Viking Raiders, MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Omos. They were all at ringside. McIntyre ended up catching Styles with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Went for the cover. Styles ended up kicking out. So, in the end, we had McIntyre win the match by disqualification because we had Lashley end up approaching as McIntyre was climbing back into the ring. McIntyre ended up rocking him with a jab, which sent him into the barricade to take Bobby Lashley out. MVP ended up staying back with his cane in hand. And we had McIntyre end up returning to the ring, end up hitting the flying clothesline to Styles from the top. And McIntyre end up, just kipping up, but Lashley ended up entering the ring, end up leveling McIntyre, caused a disqualification, so McIntyre ended up winning the match. Post-match, the Viking Raiders also come to the ring. McIntyre ended up sending Bobby Lashley out to the floor and followed it with a belly-to-belly suplex to Lashley on the floor. And Monday Night Raw went to commercial. And then when Monday Night Raw came back from commercial, we had the main event. The Viking Raiders and Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley, Styles, and Omos. This was a six-man tag. This was pretty decent here. We had Styles and Ivar end up going at it. Eric ended up coming in. Eric and Ivar did a double team on Styles. We had Lashley end up running down in his in-ring gear because he went backstage to get his gear on. So we had Lashley end up tagging in, started unloading on Eric in the corner. Lashley was dominated on Eric and went for the cover, which Eric ended up kicking out at 2. Styles came back in, started taking over on Eric in the corner. Omos came in. He ended up driving his knee into Eric's ribs. Lashley came right back in. Eric was fighting him off. Eric ended up dropping Lashley. Lashley ended up stopping the tag by dropping Eric on his face. Lashley ended up knocking McIntyre off the apron, which Ivar came in, started unloading on Bobby Lashley. He ended up driving Bobby Lashley down, delivered a splash to Lashley on the mat. Lashley ended up countering. Ivar ended up flipping Bobby Lashley around twice. Ivar and Bobby Lashley ended up tangling some more. Lashley then drove him into the mat for a 2 count. Eric ended up breaking it up with a knee. So Styles ended up rocking. Eric ended up sending him out. McIntyre ended up coming in, but Lashley ended up launching him out of the ring. Ivar ended up delivering a big boot to Bobby Lashley. Omos ended up stepping over the top rope, and Ivar ended up attacking him. Ivar ended up ducking the clothesline, and Omos ended up knocking Ivar off of his feet. So, Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when it came back, Lashley was shown working over Ivar in the corner, started beating him down, and stomping at Ivar. The referee was warning Lashley. Ivar ended up kicking out of a pin attempt. Lashley ended up grounding Ivar with a headlock. He ended up keeping Ivar down, and he ended up walking over, started flexing. Lashley started flexing at McIntyre. Ivar then fighted back, but Lashley ended up taking him down. Lashley was driving some elbows into Ivar in the corner. So, at the end of the match, Styles ended up tagging him, Bobby Lashley, but Corey Graves on commentary, he didn't think he meant to. because Styles was stumbling in the corner. Lashley ended up coming off of the tag, and he looks back at Styles, confused. So Corey Graves on commentary ended up believing that Styles meant to tag in Omos, but he went and tagged in Bobby Lashley. So Bobby Lashley ended up turning back around. McIntyre was right there and delivered the Claymore to Bobby Lashley. McIntyre went for the cover, and there you go. Drew McIntyre and the Viking Raiders win the match. Your WWE champion got pinned. Post-match, McIntyre ended up posing in the corner, started looking down at Bobby Lashley. McIntyre was yelling at Bobby Lashley about how he can't wait to see him in hell this Sunday. And Bobby Lashley was pissed off. His eyes were bulging. So that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air tonight. That was your go-home show for Hell in a Cell. Overall, this show was terrible. This show was awful, as always. Anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.